Hello and welcome to Dr. Joe's Health and Sanity Call for today. So delighted that you all are joining us and hope you're having a good day. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Dr. Joe, a professional speaker who helps busy people stay healthy, sane, and productive. And it's all about, in my opinion, getting work done when you need to so you can have more fun afterwards. And so when I'm teaching stress management, or really a lot of my topics, I might mention multitasking. Not in a way that I'm recommending it, but a lot of people don't realize that when you try to do two mental tasks at one time, people think they can do it. You know, they're talking with somebody and they're reading an email at the same time. They're like, oh, go on, keep on talking. I'm just going to finish this email. They think they can do it, but when in fact, your brain is switching back and forth between these two tasks and you're not getting everything on either end. You're more likely to make mistakes in your email. You're more likely to misinterpret the conversation, or you might say, oh, what did you just say? And then they have to repeat it again. Your brain can only focus on one mental task at one time. So a lot of times people think that multitasking isn't a good thing, when in fact, our guest today is here to talk to us about how we can mindfully multitask. In fact, she's the author of that book. She was an attorney in Silicon Valley until she ended up in the ER, kind of relating to my story on Monday. She ended up in the ER with the doctor basically saying, you need to change your life or you're going to die. So she did what most people would do. She moved to Hawaii and began teaching stress management. Not just teaching stress management as she knows it. I mean, she got trained in all of these things to be able to be a stress management instructor. So she's a professional speaker, just like me, an author of many books, including, her first one was in employment law, but now she's more focused on the overall wellness, which I am as well. And so I invited Makana Risser-Kai to talk to us about how we can practice mindful multitasking. Welcome, Makana.
Thank you, Dr. Joe.
So Makana is not the name you were born with, I understand.
Right. I was born with the name Rita Risser. A lot of people know me that way. That my first book was written under that name. But when I moved to Hawaii 20 years ago, I was adopted by a Hawaiian family, which is an ancient tradition. And a few weeks later, they gave me the name Makana, which means gift, because they said I was a gift to their family. And then a few minutes after I met them, the grandmother asked me, are you married? I said, no. She said, I have a son you should meet. And that's how I got the name Chai.
I was just going to ask you about that too. So I'm glad that you said that, because I thought that was a really fascinating story. So we talk about multitasking and how we can't possibly think about two things at one time. So a lot of times maybe people have heard that and they say, oh, I can't multitask. When in fact you can multitask if what?
You can multitask if you're doing, for example, a physical exercise and an emotional one, or an inspirational one, or a mental one. So for example, we're all washing our hands now. So while we're washing our hands, we also can be deep breathing. And deep breathing has been shown to reduce blood pressure, so it relaxes us. It improves our immune system, which we all could use right now. So as we're washing our hands, we could breathe in right now, and then hold it, and then exhale. And as you exhale, keep washing your hands. 2 deep breaths will get you your 20 seconds of hand washing, and it will reduce your stress. Then while we're doing that, we also can do a mental emotional exercise, which is to repeat an affirmation or repeat positive words. So for example, I'll repeat peace, love, joy, calm, or other words that are what I want to be in that moment. Another thing I do sometimes is I will sing in my head, but not happy birthday while I'm breathing still, but happy, positive songs, whether they're spiritual songs or Broadway show tunes or classic rock or whatever, something that makes you happy. So those are all things that we can do just while we're washing our hands. And since we're doing it so often, that will give us that opportunity to relax every time we do it.
Well, that's good. Why should we why should we sing happy birthday? You always hear that, wash your hands and sing happy birthday, 2 times, I think. Yeah, why not sing Funky Town or something like that, whatever it is that you want to feel. So I thank you for the copy of the book that you sent me, by the way. And I did review it on Amazon because I know about some of these things. I didn't know it was called mindful multitasking. But for example, I knew that I could drive the car and have a conversation with somebody at the same time. And I knew that I could walk and listen to a podcast. So some of the ideas in the book I knew about, but I was amazed at how many other things that you mentioned. And a lot of the ones that I liked, and I think I wrote them down someplace, but I can't find that piece of paper right now, but they were about things that you could do while you're sitting at your desk working. And obviously you don't think about getting exercise while you're working, but you shared some ways in which we could do that.
Yes, and actually sitting at our desk, and also when we're sitting in Zoom meetings and webinars, because I don't know about most of you, but it seems like that's what I've been spending all my life doing the last couple of weeks. So whenever we're sitting, we can keep good posture. That's an exercise. So if we're sitting up rather than sitting back, and we're pulling our belly in and tightening our glutes and our kegels, that's an exercise. So that's something that we can do whenever we're sitting down. We also can,
which I think is really a good idea to keep in mind that posture, because many of us now working at home are working in an environment that is not ergonomically healthy. We're working in our lazy boy recliner, we're working in the dining room table that is the right height for eating, but not so much for using the keypad, or maybe, we're off on a little kid desk someplace. So makes it even more important that we focus on our posture so we don't end up with back issues later on.
Well, you must have been reading my mind, because I was working in my lazy boy chair and threw out my low back. And I was actually able to get into the chiropractor right before he closed. But what I've learned from that, and this just happened like 2 weeks ago. So what I've learned from this experience is, number one, to follow my own advice. But secondly, I switch around throughout the day. So I might be sitting in one chair for an hour, and then I stand up, I move around, maybe walk around the house, and then go to another chair, and then another chair, so that I constantly move around, which is a little bit different than, some people say you should have a place where you work. And if that works for you, great. But for me, I find I need to keep moving my chairs.
Well, plus, Makana, you don't have kids at home. So you don't need to isolate yourself in one room like some people really have to, because there's chaos going on down the hall. But yeah, so if you have that kind of flexibility, one of the things that I like to do is I had a stand-up desk made for me. So it's made for my height. And that is a great way to keep that straight posture and practice, like, pulling in your abs and all of that kind of stuff. Plus I have, what is it called? It's not a Bosey ball.
Oh, the medicine ball, the big medicine ball.
It's not. Okay. Let's see if I can walk and
ball?
Stay connected without disconnecting. I forgot what it's called, but it looks like it's a flat surface with a lot of knobbies, and it's got a little half moon underneath it.
Yeah.
I
Stand on
use
it?
that at my standing desk to stand on it, so you can see I'm much taller. And you just can roll back and forward and front and back.
Wonderful.
I think it's called a wobble board.
Okay. So, and I'm glad you brought up a stand-up desk, because the other thing, and what I've been doing since working at home, is I got a recycling bin and put it on top of my desk, and that gives me the right place so that I can stand at my desk as well.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because you're right. Maybe some people want to experiment with a stand-up desk before they invest.
Yes.
Hundreds of dollars perhaps in something like that. And what I did with my first one was a box, a nice sturdy box. And then I ended up going to TJ Maxx and got a more sturdy box, because the first one was just a paper box. And then I got kind of like I don't know what kind of thing, it's something decorative, but it was box-like, and I used that for a bit. And then I invested with having a cabinet maker make me a stand-up desk. My husband ended up going to IKEA, and for about $300, he's got one that it's motorized, so it can go up and down, and he typically uses it up. So.
Yeah, and then another thought I wanted to suggest in terms of these Zooms and webinars that we're doing is, if we don't have to be in the meeting. So for example, people here right now, they're not in the meeting, they're just listening, right? So why not take this opportunity to do some exercises? You can stand up, you can stretch, and you can balance on one foot. Balance is really important as we get older.
Makani, you mentioned balancing on one foot in front of the microwave. So that 1 or 2 minutes that you're looking at, lift up one foot kind of in tree position and balance. I thought that was a good idea.
Yeah, or while you're waiting for the toaster or the tea kettle or whatever. And then squats are really important. I don't know if you remember, but the first guy who ever did exercises on TV, Jack LaLanne, said the most important exercise we can do as we get older is squats. Because he said, as long as you can do squats, you can get on the toilet.
Yeah.
And as long as you can get on the toilet, you're not disabled.
And you know what? There are a lot of young people who might have laughed about that comment that you just made, but both with my mother and my mother-in-law, they said one of the deciding factors whether somebody can stay at home or needs to be institutionalized is, can they get on the bathroom by themselves? And you're absolutely right. If they can't get down and get back up, a lot of people can get down, they can't get back up, then they need to be institutionalized. And I can't remember what the statistics were, but it was like, wow, we need to continue to do squats. So don't keep getting yourself a higher toilet that makes it easier. Practice your squats. I think that was an excellent idea. Now, something else that I really enjoyed from your book is something I think we all need right now. A couple of different things. One was gratitude, but you also are certified to teach forgiveness through, is it the Stanford University program?
Yes, the Stanford Forgiveness Project.
There you go. And I'll tell you, I could use some of that right now, okay? So teach us first about gratitude. How can we develop more gratitude in a multitasking way? In other words, not taking any more time to do any more stuff. This is time we're already using. How can we learn gratitude?
Well, one thing I hope everybody is doing is going outside every day and walking around the neighborhood. I believe it's legal to do that everywhere. It is here where we're on lockdown. So while we're doing that walk, we can have gratitude. We can be grateful that we're able to walk, that we live in a neighborhood where we're allowed to walk, and then be grateful for a flower that you see, or the clouds in the sky, or this play of light on the clouds, or the color of the sky, or the sun backlighting a flower. Just pay attention, because if you're doing this walk every day as I am, or twice a day sometimes as I am, you want to find things that you can be grateful for, and experience that feeling of awe.
I was walking the other day, and There was a beautiful, I mean, richly colored red cardinal on the tree. And I mentioned it to my husband, and we were just watching him flitter around. Then he went off. And it was just that idea that I noticed it. I noticed several more on that same walk. So yeah, it really does give you a really good feeling. And that's one of my objectives every single time I go on a walk, to try to find something that gives me awe. And I think it was yesterday, it was those red bright colored, I don't know where the females were, but those brightly colored males were just everywhere. But if we hadn't seen the first one, I'm not sure if we would have seen the rest of them.
Yeah, I think we have to really look for it. And something that I do that I guess it does take a little extra time, but I do it on Facebook, so I feel like it doesn't take extra time away, is every day I put 3 things that I'm grateful for that day. So it has to be 3 different things. You can't say my house, my family, my health every time, you know. So yesterday, my gratefulness was that my neighbor's mango tree has these little tiny mangoes on it. So I know eventually we'll get some. And I can't remember the other 2 things, but making the habit of writing it down every day, whether you do it on Facebook or in a journal or whatever, just makes you start being aware and looking for things to be grateful for.
Yeah, for those of you who were on the call with Neely a couple of weeks ago, she talked about her happiness jar. She has this huge glass jar with a bird at the top, because that's her nickname. And every single morning, she writes what she was grateful for the day before. May not make sense, but it works for her, right? And she fills up these jars every single year. And on New Year's Day, she gets on Facebook Live and starts reading them. And some of them were as silly as, and she said this aloud so I can repeat it, is, I had a good poop yesterday. You know? and other times there are things like, EMS came the other day and everything's okay, right? That's a big thing. But something else that you mentioned in your book that I thought was interesting is, I think I told you, and many of you that are listening to the call know, that right now, in order to help my daughter stay employed, and the fact that I'm not out there speaking, because my speaking engagements have gotten canceled, I have volunteered to help take care of my 2.5-year-old granddaughter, which you can imagine, 2.5-year-old, how much energy they have. And so I find that I've just been more observant of how I treat her, that I always praise her. Oh, that was really good. Oh, you're so talented. You can do that really well. Like, she wanted to help me clean the kitchen floor, and she wanted to get on the hands and knees. So I got on my hands and knees and we scrubbed it. And I said, oh, you're so good at cleaning the floor. And you know, it's funny, we express gratitude and thanks, I guess, and praise little kids all the time for the things they do. And I thought, you mentioned something in your book, and I thought, how many times do I say that to my husband? Thank you very much for cleaning the dishes today. And because there's a part of me that says, you know, I clean the dishes, he cleans the dishes, you know, come on, you know. But you had a different perspective on that. So I need to thank my husband more for those kind of things that he do anyway.
We need to thank them for doing their job. You know, I thank him for taking out the rubbish. I thank him for washing the dishes. And because I know that when I do something, and honestly, he doesn't always notice, so I have to tell him. But when I do something and he thanks me, I feel so much better. You know, it just warms my heart. So that's something. Another thing I wanted to briefly mention is smiling, because the research shows that even when we fake smile, that it improves our mood, it decreases our blood pressure, it improves our immune system.
Reduces wrinkles.
It reduces wrinkles, yeah.
Especially, I mean, that's what I noticed. Like, people who look at me, and if I'm not smiling, they think, and I think this happens as we get older, we look like we're angry.
Yes, yeah.
So,
yeah, exactly. But mostly because it makes us feel better. So as part of my walk, when I'm just walking in the neighborhood, I, of course, am smiling at my neighbors, but I'm also just smiling, because that again reminds me that I'm happy, I'm healthy, I'm alive, and it feeds into the gratitude practice. And then you mentioned forgiveness and forgiveness.
Yes, I do want you to talk about forgiveness.
The research shows that for people who hold grudges have higher blood pressure, more colds, more flus. So again, forgiveness is really important. And I think there's two kind of levels of forgiveness. One is with the people that we may be stuck with right now. And so forgiving them, not necessarily verbally, but just in our hearts or in our minds. Sometimes I just have to go, I forgive you, I forgive you, I forgive you when my husband's done something that's driven me crazy. And the other piece of it is trying to forgive people that we disagree with, who are leaders or on social media, who we see that we don't have a relationship with. And honestly, this is the hardest thing for me right now, is to forgive people that I disagree with on the national stage, who are doing things like hospitals that are firing doctors, who are telling the press that they don't have PPE. That is so, so sad. And so I work on forgiving, and there's a book called Forgive for Good, written by my teacher, Dr. Fred Luskin, that there's a whole process of going through forgiveness if you've been really traumatized, which is very helpful. But for me, I just try to affirm, I forgive you, I forgive you, I forgive you. And I also do as much as I can to avoid seeing these stories, although I do want to stay connected with what's going on. But I try not to overdose on the news. In fact, one of my mantras is less news, more music, just because we need to take care of ourselves. If we don't take care of ourselves, we're going to get sick, and we're not going to be able to do good for anybody.
And it's so true, Makana. I mean, because the news doesn't change from moment to moment, or even if it did, how does it impact you? How does it change your life? What would you do differently if you'd known it 3 minutes earlier? So in most cases, I agree. Less news is better. I personally have not watched the news in years. I do not watch it. There's something different about reading the news, that you kind of get just the facts rather than the emotion behind it. And I found that has been extremely healthy for me. So I would recommend anybody who's finding the news disrupting, don't watch it. You read, go on your favorite websites and read it that way. It is easier on your body.
I completely agree. When you're watching news, it just keeps coming and coming. You don't have any control. Whereas if you go to the New York Times website or Washington Post or what have you, you can look at the headlines and then decide, okay, I'm going to dive deep into this one.
There you go. So you can pick and choose. Absolutely. Well, our time is up. And Makana, I want to thank you so much for joining me on this call. She's the author of Mindful Multitasking. You can find it on Amazon. You can get an ebook and download it and read all of her ideas. Also, if they want to reach out to you, what's the best way to connect?
They can connect to me through my website, makanachai.com, or makana@makanachai.com. I would love to hear from anyone and give them any support that I can.
Okay, and that is makanachai.com, right? Have I got that right?
Well done, yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you all for joining me. We have a lineup that is so spectacular for the rest of this week and next week and the next week. Over the weekend, I spent some time just reaching out to people, and people have been so gracious. So watch me I'm at like the symbol @Go Dr. Joe, which is 6 letters, GODRJO. Connect with me on social media if you're not already there. I also, now that you've registered, I will send out another newsletter probably on Monday. We have Wendy Turner Larson talking with us on Friday. Monday, we've got a fabulous storyteller, who always has a lesson to teach us. And he's going to spin a story just for us. And I can't even tell you about all the different guests we got. And like I said, I'm very grateful. Makana says we have to express our gratitude. Very grateful that all these people have reached out to me and given of their time and their expertise. So I'll see you on Friday. Again, send me an email anytime you want to chat. I've really appreciated the emails that I have gotten. My email is just, again, Dr. Jo, DRJO, at drjo.com, or bounce back the email. So the email that I sent you. So thank you very much. I will talk with you on Friday. Thanks, Makana.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.